Hey everybody, and welcome back to the next part in my Dialing In series, PowerCab Edition. So this was a series I started. I've only done one episode, so this is episode number 2. And the first one was just an introduction to when I first got my PowerCab. But what I wanted to do from now on is kind of like with my other Dialing In series, is dive into specific amp models and dial them in for use with the PowerCab or PowerCab Plus, but using the internal built-in speaker emulation in the PowerCab, right? So what you're gonna see that's gonna be unique to these presets that I will put up on CustomTone, mind you, is that they're not gonna have any speaker cabs in the presets themselves, okay? So they're going to be designed to not be used on flat mode or with any FR speaker, or to go direct with into the front of house, although we will talk about a workaround for that in a moment. They're going to be designed specifically for use with the speaker emulation settings, one of the different settings on the PowerCab Plus, okay? So that's a pretty important point I just wanted to clear up and make sure that we had out of the way. So this time I'm going to dive in and dial in a 4-snapshot preset using the Placater amp models we have in our Helix, which are going to be the Placater Clean and the Placater Dirty, which are models of the Friedman BE100 amplifier, okay? And hopefully we have a preset here that's going to sound good regardless of whether we're playing live or in the studio. Okay, so how are we gonna handle this? Well, first things first, what we're going to hear, this is gonna be a little different. What you are going to be hearing is obviously not the sound of the PowerCab in the room. I thought that would be a bit of a futile exercise here to put a mic in front of it and then have to deal with, you're hearing the coloration of that microphone. It's not really giving you what you're gonna get. There's no real way for me to translate what I'm hearing in my room through my PowerCab to you watching a video. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to record the direct out on the Placater, the PowerCab, which is doing the Placater. And you'll hear what we could send to front of house or to our recording interface from the speaker emulated output of the PowerCab, if that makes sense. So let's dive over, not right away to HX Edit, but over to PowerCab Edit, okay? Because as I mentioned in the first video in this series, the PowerCab has these speaker models, right? And how many does it have here? 6 speaker models: Vintage, Green, Cream, Jarvis, Bio, and Essex. I talked about those in the first video. I won't go into detail about those. I have chosen for this patch the green setting, which is a greenback 25, which actually I really like paired up with the Placater when I use the stock cabs in the Helix. That's why I chose this, okay? So as we can see here, PowerCab Edit gives us the ability to choose from one of those speaker models, which I've chosen the green. It also allows us the same thing we have in Helix itself, that we can choose all these different mic models. And I've chosen one of my favorites, the 121 ribbon, which is a model of the Royer R121. And I've pulled that back 6.5 inches, which is always really important, I find, with ribbon mics, okay? Level is at -14. High cut and low cut are off, and there's good reason for that, because over here in my preset, I've already applied low cuts and high cuts at 100 hertz and 12 kilohertz respectively, okay? So I didn't feel the need to add those again over here on PowerCab Edit. So, gotta keep something in mind. If you're listening and monitoring through the PowerCab, the settings here of what mic I use and the mic distance I use are not going to affect what you're hearing in the room. This again is Line 6's solution to that whole amp in the room discussion, right? They've modeled the sound of an amp coming out of the speaker in the PowerCab to sound or to emulate one of those 6 speaker models I just mentioned, in this case the Greenback 25, right? So it's not a mic'd cabinet. It's not going to sound like that. It's supposed to sound like that speaker as if it was the real speaker, a real Greenback 25 was in the room with you. So you might say, well, what is this for? Well, this is for the output, the direct output that's going to emulate the sound of a mic'd cab, which is what we would want to send to our DAW, like I'm going to be doing here, or to front of house, okay? So it's 2 different things. I hope everybody's clear on how that works. So what you're hearing, again, is going to be recorded in my DAW, which is the emulated output, which is going to be the Greenback 25 with a 121 ribbon at 6.5 inches back, okay? If I turn the PowerCab up, what I'm going to hear is the PowerCab playing its speaker emulation of the Greenback 25 unmiked, which is more like that amp in the room guitar cab. It's a really well thought out design, works wonderfully. Okay, so what do we have sound wise? Well, here is what, now you'll have to take my word for it. I dialed these sounds in to obviously my personal preference, and I first dialed it into the sound in the room of what you would be using if you were playing with the PowerCab Live, and I really liked the sound of these 4 presets. They sounded very nice. And anybody out there watching this that grabs a preset that has a PowerCab, you can try it out, make little tweaks to it as necessary, and you know, we all have different personal preferences, different ideals, different guitars, different playing styles and whatnot. So there's all sorts of tweaks we can make to it. But what you're going to be hearing in the video is just what's coming into my DAW from these settings here. Okay, so I can basically get rid of that. Now we can come over to our preset, which I've labeled Placater-PC Plus. Okay, so I'm going to try to label all my custom tone patches that are for the PC, either PC or PC Plus, so it can be differentiated. Because I mean, if you plug this into a normal FR with no speaker emulation, it's going to sound really awful. There's no speaker cab on this. Okay, so what I did here is for my Snapshot 1, I have clean. Snapshot 2 push, Snapshot 3 OD, and Snapshot 4 lead as per usual. Clean and OD are both using the Placater Clean model. And then as you'll see here, OD and lead are both using the Placater Dirty model, okay, which I have set up here. The Placater Dirty, I've added a little bit of delay just on the lead snapshot, set to quarter note, note sync. It's the Cosmos Echo I used this time. Didn't touch any of the stock settings, except I changed it to just head 3 on the mode, feedback to 16%, and mix down to 23%. So when we need that, you'll know what that's all about. I have a little bit of room reverb from a legacy room reverb with a delay of 3, pre-delay of 20 milliseconds, mix of 25%. My EQ, nothing really on it other than my low and high cuts, 100 hertz and 12 kilohertz, and my normal little LA Studio comp with peak reduction of 5.5 and gain of 5, mix at 100%. Now, I've got a lot of questions, and I'm going to deal with this in a different video altogether. But I get a lot of questions, people saying, now with the PowerCab, what's interesting is usually in a lot of my presets, I'll have the cab up here beside one of the amps, right? And all the processing happening after the cab. So what happens now when essentially we're putting the cab over here after all the processing? Well, I've actually done another little preset you can see over here, pre versus post cab. I'm going to use it for a different video I'm going to shoot after this. I don't want to get too in depth into that here, other than to say, if we're dealing with mono signal, obviously, if we have stereo delays, you know, we put our cab up here and we feed it into a bunch of stereo effects out into maybe a stereo track on our DAW or into a stereo FR. Well, that's going to sound very different than if we all of a sudden collapse it down to mono feeding into the PowerCab, unless we're feeding 2 PowerCabs, right? So that's not what we're talking about. If I have a fully mono path, which I do here, the effects are very subtle as to whether we have the cab before or after. I mean, there is a slight change. You'll have to see the next video I do to kind of get that, but there is a subtle change, almost something in the high end, but I mean, it's so subtle, it's something we can correct just by dialing in. And if I'm dialing in our sound a little bit different, maybe a little less on the high cuts or maybe a little more on the treble or whatever, less on the treble, whatever the need may be. But if we're dialing in that patch as I am here for this purpose, it's really a moot point, I think. So I'm still going to keep my little dynamics processor at the end, my little mastering section, even though the cab is now after, okay? I don't think it's going to be as big a deal as some folks may be making it out to be, okay? But again, that's just my opinion. Others might feel very differently about that, and well, there's nothing we can do about that because there's really no way to put this compressor or this EQ after the cab in this particular case, right? So anyways, so back to our amps, so back to our clean setting. What I have done too is I have my little split crossover set at 650 hertz. So all the frequencies above that, I boosted by 1 dB, left everything else below it, just to give it a tiny bit of sparkle on these, okay? So for my amp settings, for my clean, I went with a drive of 6.2, bass 5.5, treble 7.5, presence 7.5, master at 8, channel volume at 10, bright at 1. And that sounded like this. This is my Godin Progression Plus, JB Junior in the bridge, and some Godin stock pickups, single coils for the neck and middle. So here's the bridge pickup. Neck pickup. Middle pickup. Neck and middle. And the bridge and middle. Okay, so nice stuff. I was really happy with that. Basic, generic, kind of a clean sound. Nice though, works well. So if I go to Snap 2, where I call it push now, what I've done is I've bumped, well, let's see actually what the changes are here. I went drive from 6.2 to 10. I brought the bass from 5.5 back to 3.5. Treble from 7.5 and present from 7.5, both bounced those up to 8.2, and the master up to 10 from 8, and I brought the bright switch up to 2, and I adjusted the channel volume accordingly. So on the bridge pickup, that one sounds like this. Go over to the neck pickup. Middle pickup. Okay, and neck and middle. And the bridge and middle. All right, so a nice little breakup on that, pushes quite nicely. I was really liking that. Okay, so now we switch over to our Overdrive Snapshot, and that switches over to our Placater Dirty, where I had the drive on 5, bass on 4.1, mid on 4.5, treble on 6.8, presence on 6.7, and channel volume 6.7, master on 5, and our fat switch on. All right, and that sounded like this on our bridge pickup. Okay, nice on that neck pickup on that. Middle pickup. Middle and neck. And bridge and middle. All right, so nice stuff there. When I switch over to my lead snapshot now, I bump the drive up to 7. I think the tone stack all stayed the same. Master went up to 6. Fat stayed on, yeah, so that's basically it. A little bit of boost on gain. And a word about that, you know, I'm using a guitar here with the JB Junior pickup. I don't find it a super high output pickup. Depending on the guitar you use, you might find these snapshots need a little bit more gain or maybe a little bit less gain, and that's a simple, you know, maneuver, right? Bring your drive up, bring your master, play around with your drive and master, and you're going to be able to dial it in more to your liking or to your personal needs, right? You can get a lot more gain out of this, obviously. You could also engage HBE or saturation, right? Which kind of really takes things over the top with this model. I usually tend to stay away from that, but some folks really like that because they like that little extra boost, right? Okay, so, and I also engage the delay on this. So that sounds like this with the bridge pick. Neck pickup. Middle pickup. Neck and middle. And middle and bridge. Back to bridge. All right, so lots of fun. So again, what you guys are hearing is the sound of the speaker emulated direct output of the PowerCab Plus, right? With these settings that I told you about earlier. 121 ribbon, pulled off 6.5 inches. If you got this and you wanted a different sound going to front of house, you are welcome to come in here and change to whatever mic and distance you want. And I mean, also even the speaker, right? I've kind of dialed this patch in to use the greenback, but it doesn't have to, right? That's just my preference, as I always stay with all of this. So what do you guys think? I hope you really enjoyed that. It was a fun one to dial in. I'm really enjoying using the PowerCab and doing this series that's more specific to it. Again, if you want to take this patch and use it without a PowerCab, well, you would probably want to come over here and input, you know, slide these back or put a cab somewhere, right? You could put it here somewhere. To get the same sound would probably basically be like grabbing the greenback 25 cab, you know, right here and doing what I did, maybe throwing a 121 ribbon on it 6.5 inches back. That would be actually an interesting little comparison to do. Maybe I'll do at one point to see if, record both and see if they sound the same with the stock cabs in the Helix. Anyways, that's not the point of this. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this and enjoyed the video. I'll have this up on CustomTone for you guys to grab. Please leave me some comments, like the video, subscribe if you haven't already. Really appreciate everything as far as comments and support you guys give me, and it means a lot, and thank you so much for that. So until next time, I'll be back with some more content. Thanks for tuning in. Ciao for now, guys.